Has Mauricio Pochettino really not had any contact with Sergiño Dest since taking over the US job? That can't be true, right? From the reports coming out this week, it sounds like it might be, but we have to ask why. I highly doubt this is an accident, so what is Mauricio Pochettino trying to say by doing things like this? We're going to talk about it next, here on Pints and Punditry at the Pitchside Pub. Mauricio Pochettino does not strike me as a guy who does a lot of things by accident. He is known to be very meticulous, he's well thought out, he has a plan. So if the reports that have come out this week that he has not made any contact with Sergiño Dest, a key player on the United States men's national team when healthy, and that is a major caveat when healthy. But when healthy, he is a key player on this team. If Mauricio Pochettino really has not made any contact with him during his 8+ months at the helm of the US men's national team, that's a problem in one way or another, and many are suggesting that he either simply hasn't gotten around to it, or that he's focused on other things, or any myriad of excuses, and I just don't buy it. I don't buy for a second that this is an accident, or that this is negligence, or that he's just not working hard. This feels deliberate, and I'm not sure why, but I don't believe that Mauricio Pochettino is doing this or anything by accident. So we're going to talk about what might be going on here next in just a second, but before we do, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me down below so you can follow the channel. Get down in the comment section. What do you think about this? Should he have handled this differently? Is this negligence? Get in the comments section. Let me know your thoughts. You can also leave some comments on Twitter and Blue Sky at Pitchside Pub, and check out the website pitchsidepub.com. So when there's a coaching change, obviously a lot of the mechanics of how you take over depends on when during the schedule this happens, right? If this is a club team and he comes in mid-year, well, there's no communication to be had. You walk in the dressing room, you say, hey guys, I'm the new gaffer. You shake a bunch of hands and you get to work. If it's in the off-season, in the summer for football or in other sports, just the winter off-season or what have you, you make a bunch of phone calls. When a head coach takes over, he calls at least the main guys, if not everybody on the roster at some point. That's sort of a given. That's sort of just standard operating procedure. And if it's not, you are immediately behind the 8 ball in terms of establishing credibility in terms of your communication with the players. The players want to know who you are, what it's all about. There's always a level of apprehension of what's my place going to be with this new coach. I had a spot here. I knew what my role was. Is it going to change? And sure, the elite of the elite know that their spots are safe, but everybody beneath that may have a few questions and need a few reassurances. And that's what's strange about this situation, is that Pochettino has not reached out to Sergiño Dest, and Dest is a guy who should have a pretty significant role on this roster when healthy. Now, that's the key, is that he has not been healthy for quite some time, and maybe that's the message that Pochettino is trying to send, but I don't believe for a second that this is accidental or negligence, and that's sort of what's being suggested is, oh, well, he's focusing on the players who are in camp. Well, okay, that's fine in terms of when they're in camp and when you have the January international window and you've got these guys. Yeah, you're not worried about a guy who's hurt at that point, but for an international manager, there's a hell of a lot of downtime, and he's doing media tours and he's doing appearances and he's doing all this sort of stuff. He's got the time to make a phone call, a text message, something. In the last 8 months, you send a text or two, you set up a half-hour phone call. You can do that in the airport while you're waiting for one of your flights. I mean, the idea that he hasn't had the time to do this or that his focus is elsewhere is utter nonsense. That just doesn't add up at all. And Mauricio Pochettino does not strike me as a guy who does things accidentally, or that it would just slip his mind that, oh, the guy who should be my starting right back, oh, I forgot to call him. Man, I really should get around to doing that. It's not an email you need to send. This is a guy on your team. So if Mauricio Pochettino has not reached out to Sergiño Dest, that is deliberate. That is deliberate, and it is being done for a reason. Now, there's a couple things here. One, it does sound like somebody from the coaching staff or from the organization has reached out to Sergiño Dest. So maybe it wasn't Pochettino, but from what we're hearing, it sounds like somebody has. It's just that Poch hasn't reached out directly, which, okay, I guess Dest isn't out on some island wondering what's going on, but it's still weird that the new head coach hasn't reached out, and I'm surprised in talks with the other players who he has talked to, no one has said, hey, coach, have you talked to Sergiño yet? At some point, there's got to be some leadership here that steps up. But I don't believe for a second that Pochettino is doing this accidentally, or that he is being negligible and that he's just not working hard and not invested in the job. He's trying to reestablish his credibility as a coach. He's trying to reestablish his career and get back to the kind of guy that is linked with every big job that's on the market. And there's no doubt that the U.S. job for him is a stepping stone. But if he does it for 2 years, absolutely phones it in, and the U.S. completely flops at the World Cup, that's not going to help him reestablish his credibility and be linked to some of these big jobs that he's been linked with in the past. So he's got something to prove here as well. So I don't think he's half-assing this job or mailing it in the way some are suggesting. I think this is a deliberate move. Now, that doesn't mean I like it. That doesn't mean I agree with it. I could see an argument where Pochettino wants to make sure that nobody's too comfortable in this U.S. camp. That there are some guys who have been around for a while. They were part of the young core that came up, and they think their spot is locked in, and that it's theirs, and they really don't have to work all that hard for it. And that has been, it's hard to say that's a problem, because I don't think that's actually a lot of the players' mentalities, but God, when you look at some of the performances that just look lackluster out there on the pitch, it sure looks like there's some guys who think their spot is locked in, that they don't have to work for it, and that there's no possibility of them losing it. And really, outside of Christian Pulisic and maybe Jedi Robinson, no one on this team has a starting role that is locked in. And even Jedi Robinson is only because the gap between him and our second best left back is really huge. Pulisic is the only guy good enough, really, that you can just say he's on the team no matter what. I don't care what form he's in. As long as he's healthy, he's the first guy on the team sheet, and then we'll build the rest around him. Nobody else really fits that bill. Again, maybe Jedi Robinson. So, could Pochettino be trying to send a message, particularly to a guy who has been hurt, has been inconsistent, has really not been a part of this team in a while, in over a year consistently? Could he be trying to send a message that, hey, right now you're not a part of this team. I didn't need to call you. You're not even on this team. You haven't worn a USA shirt in a long time. You haven't worn any shirt in a long time. You're hurt. Possibly. Now, I don't know that that's how I'd want to send that message. In fact, I think I'd rather make the phone call and say that to him directly, right? And say, hey, listen, we'd love to have you back, but when you come back, you're going to have to compete. That spot is not yours, and I expect you to come in here and work hard and earn that spot back that Joe Scally has been, holding down for a little while now. I'd much rather that would be my style. But, I'm not the coach. I'm not Mauricio Pochettino. So is that what he's doing? I don't know. I am purely speculating here. I have no evidence to support this, but I don't believe for a second that he's just not doing his job. That he is just taking the $6 million that the U.S. is paying him and just happy to be there and making some media appearances and waving and not working hard at this. He has some credibility to reestablish as well in the coaching world. And he's a competitor. This is a high-level coach. They don't do that. These guys are not lazy. You don't get to this level by not working hard. So he didn't just forget. This isn't negligence. This isn't laziness. And it isn't an accident. I do not believe for a second that this is an accident. If he has not contacted Sergiño Dest or any other players that should be well-established players on this roster, in this player pool, it is on purpose. And I don't necessarily agree with that approach, but I would argue that it has to be deliberate. I cannot comprehend any other possibility as to why that would have happened. Mauricio Pochettino is a deliberate guy. He is a meticulous guy. And everything he does is for a reason. And so for him to just forget about Sergiño Dest just doesn't line up with anything we know about him. I think he's doing this on purpose. I don't love the message, but I do at least understand where he's coming from. What do you think? How would you have handled it? How should he have handled it? Do you think it's on purpose? Do you think it's deliberate? Get down in that comment section. Let me know your thoughts. You can also leave some comments on Twitter and Blue Sky at Pitchside Pub. While you're at it, hit that subscribe button for me down below so you can follow the channel and check out the website, pitchsidepub.com. Thanks as always for joining us here on Pints and Punditry at the Pitchside Pub.